Hi everyone, it's Lindsay here with you today again, and I am going to share with you two different ways to do some tone-on-tone stamping with Rinea foil. So if you don't know, Rinea foil is a type of foil. It's a paper, but it's a non-porous surface. It's bendable, it's flexible, it will hold its shape. It comes in all different colors. It also comes in a few different sizes. Now you can get multiple packs of multiple colors, or you can buy each one of the colors individually. I'm using that fuchsia with a gold backing on it. Um, it comes from the floral variety pack too, so you can get other colors with it, or you can just get it on its own. Now, because it's a non-porous surface, I'm going to be stamping on it with the new StazOn Pigment ink. Now, I want to do tone-on-tone stamping, so I'm going to use a few different colors today. I've got two different ways to share with you. It comes in all these different colors though, so you can use this on any of the other colors of Rinea foil also to get beautiful tone on tone. The first way we're going to get the tone on tone is to use a tone or a color of ink that is the same color as the foil. So I'm using the fuchsia foil. So I decided to go ahead and go with the Pink Cosmos StazOn Pigment ink. And I'm just going to stamp a quick background. Now this is a pigment ink. It is an opaque pigment ink, so it's going to go on this paper very, very nicely. It's going to sit well. It's not going to beat up at all. And if you wanted to, Rinea foil doesn't emboss that well. However, you could add some embossing powder on top of it and very, very, very carefully add some heat to it. But you have to be super careful with that if you decide to go that route. I just wanted to go ahead and stamp on this. It doesn't take long to dry. It stays wet long enough to add the embossing powder. However, it also dries quicker than your other pigment ink, so it is going to dry on this non-porous surface. I am just stamping out this flower, and I'm just inking up my stamp with the pigment ink and stamping it down on the foil. As you press it down onto the foil, be a little bit careful because it will, that first initial press, you could move it around a little bit. Once you stamp it down and you get the ink transferred onto the paper, your stamp might stick a little bit. That's okay. Just peel it off. The ink will stay on the paper. It's just the nature of this ink to kind of want to stick to whatever it is on. Now once I have that background all stamped out, you can see I've got this gorgeous tone-on-tone look with the pink on the pink, and it's so fun. But because I have that shiny surface from the foil, I've got that matte surface from the ink. You can still see it and it shows up beautifully. Now to finish this card off, I kept the background as is and covered an A2 card base. All I did was add a quick sentiment and matted that with some black cardstock so it would pop out away from the background. Super simple card. It took about 5 minutes to make it, and I love the way it turned out. However, you do need colored ink for that one. If you don't want to buy a bunch of the colored inks, which I love them, I think they're well worth it, but if you don't want to, you can also get a tone-on-tone look with just the white ink pad. This is the Snowflake ink pad, and all you want to do is take any color of foil, a darker one works better, but take your foil and your white ink and just stamp over it. The white ink is opaque, however, it still allows a little bit of that foil to peek through as it dries. Now, if you wanted this to be truly opaque, again, you could heat emboss on top of it, but I'm going for a tone-on-tone look. As this sits and it kind of absorbs into that main level of this foil, the colored portion, it kind of takes on the color of whatever foil is on there, and it almost pulls up the color a little bit. Now, because of that, you will see as I'm stamping this out, I'm pulling up some pink with my stamp, and it's getting on my ink pad. It will come back up as I continue to move my stamp around, but to avoid that, once I stamp it down and I pull it up, just give it a wipe off. You're not going to take any of the ink off. The ink is stuck on there now. However, you can take off that color that is sitting on top of the stamp. So go ahead and give it a good wipe, and then you won't transfer the color onto your ink pad. So you can see I stamped this one time, but you can see the difference between the freshly stamped image and the one that has been sitting for a while. it kind of absorbs and mixes with that color on top of the foil to take it on, which is such a cool look. You can get that tone on tone stamping look. Now I went ahead and built up a background with this brush stamp image from Crackerbox and Suzy Stamps. I just turned it on its side. Instead of having it as a square, I'm using it as a diamond and just creating this fun background. And again, as you're stamping this, it might get a little sticky. It might stick as you pull up your stamp. Just give it a good tug and it will pull up. Everything will transfer just fine. It's just the nature of this ink. Now I'll go ahead and stamp out my last stamp, and then I've got this gorgeous, gorgeous background. Now this one, again, I wanted the background to be the main focal point of this. I think it's fun, it's shiny, it's kind of its own project of its own. So what I did was just took a Celebrate stamp, stamped it on a white cardstock strip, matted it with some black, and attached it to the panel. The panel I had put onto an A2 side folding card base, so the card is all ready to go once I add my sentiment strip. I did pop it up a little bit to add a little dimension, but other than that, very, very, very simple and easy to do. Like I said though, using StazOn Pigment ink, it does stick onto your stamps and on any surface you're working with. It's super easy to get off though. All you need is some StazOn cleaner. So I have this container of StazOn. It's got the nice little dauber top on it. All I do is take off the cap and rub that dauber over my stamp and over wherever the ink is on my work surface. Just give it a good rub and it'll start to come off the surface. It doesn't take much of this at all to get it off. A little bit of this goes a long way, and though it looks like I'm using a lot here, I've used this and used and used and used this bottle, and it's still pretty much full. So once I've let that sit and kind of get the ink up a little bit, kind of remove it on its own, I just take a baby wipe and wipe it all up, and all the ink is removed. If it doesn't remove all in the first time you've got some grooves in those stamps, you can go over it again to remove all the ink that is on there. That does it for me today. I hope you guys enjoyed a look at 2 different ways you can do tone-on-tone stamping on the Rinea foil with Imagine Crafts. Happy crafting, everyone!